So we were discussing last week, fascinating Gemara, I think took us all by surprise. The Gemara on Daf Lamed, the Gemara suggested, Gemara on Machlekes Tanoim, and we're actually lenient on the matter. Gemara on Machlekes Tanoim between Rabbi Shua ben Karcha and the Rabbanan about Eidei and Dinei Nefashos. If you could, combine Eidus, that not only if Eidim witness things from separate locations, but if they are even talking about different subject matters, meaning I saw a halva on Monday, you saw a halva on Tuesday. Bottom line, we both agree that this guy owes Yenim $100. So Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says for Eidei Dinei Mamonos, afilu b'zeh achar zeh, we are mitzdarif. Eidei miyuchedes, what's called the sugya of Eidei miyuchedes, is sufficient. That's something clearly that's not accepted in Dinei Nefashos. So we gave a whole shir last week. Basically, the premise was the chiddush of the Beis Halevi, that the Beis Halevi was of the opinion that fundamentally it's really something that's accepted and we believe to be true, even in the world of Dinei Nefashos. And the proof is that we were going to kones him to a kippah based on Eidei miyuchedes. The Gemara on Sanhedrin Pei Aleph tells us, and we'll put him into a jail and he'll starve to death, and he will die based on the Eidei miyuchedes. So he says clearly that's a proof that yes, we can't function with regular capital punishment without two Eidim for Dinei Nefashos, but the fact that it's not the fact that we don't believe the Eidei miyuchedes when it comes to Dinei Nefashos, and therefore in Dinei Mamonos we just stick to the fact that each one is Ne'eman, and we, like we said last week, is because in terms of Dinei Mamonos, it's not the technicality of the fact that the Eidim are now creating a chiyuv. It's just a birur of the facts. What's called in the yeshivas Eidus lebir hadavar lo ivru sade el shakre. When it comes to Dinei Mamonos, I just want to know factually, is it there, is it not? So then I could use anything that's true, anything that's correct. So if Eidus miyuchedes, like the Beis Halevi argued, is true, is factual, so then the fact that they're not saying it together is a technicality that's relevant in Dinei Nefashos. It's not relevant when it comes to Dinei Mamonos. So that was the Gemara. And then the Gemara said that they debate this issue both in Svara and based on a pasuk. Just to read quickly, B'mai pamiflagi, Iba Yisema Kravi, Iba Yisema Svara. It's about, first word on line is Iba Yisema. It's 12 lines from the bottom, Shkoyach. So the Gemara says, whether it's a pasuk or it's a Svara, Iba Yisema Svara, Amona de Kamasad Hai, Lo Kamasad Hai. How could you accept these two? The Rabbanan say, how could you accept these two testimonies? They're not talking about the same $100. What Yedim's talking about A, I'm talking about B. There's a common denominator, but common denominator doesn't cut it in Eidus. So the Gemara, hi, umana de kamasad hai, lo kamasad hai, v'idach, and Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, that's Mekel on the matter. Amona ba'almo tervayu kamasad. Who cares? Bottom line, we're all talking about $100. And lo ivru sadei el shakri, and we have the facts on the ground. So that's accepted. Fascinating. Or you can say that it's based on a pasuk. That the pasuk says, "Hu eido ro yada." V'tanya mimash v'shenemar lo yakum eid eni yodea shu echad matal malamer echad ze bona av kol makom shenemar eid harikan shnayim. The Torah learns that anytime it says eid, it means two, because there's specific situations where the Torah specifies echad, so it means stama eid would mean two. Ad shir kasav echad, until the Torah says explicitly one. And why did it use a singular rashon? Right? It must be because you got to see the same story. The two eidim have to be chad. They have to be re'iyah, like one. They have to see it together, and it can't be eidus miyuchedes. So the Gemara says, what did Rabbi Shua ben Karcha do with that drasha? Don't they have to see it at one shot? No, any idea, any re'iyah, he learns the pasuk differently, and it doesn't have to be together. Good. So that was last week's shir. That was one type of Eidei miyuchedes. Now comes along the Gemara, and the Gemara goes weiter. Ve'ein eiduson miskayemes bebezdin ad sheya'idu shnein ke'echad. Comes along another sheet in the Tanoim, which aren't necessarily dependent on each other, that's focusing on not the re'iyah, but rather focusing on the haggadah, on the testimony. How does the testimony have to be presented? So the Gemara says the first Tana held they have to present it together. They're a katz. They have to testify biyachad ad sheya'idu shnein ke'echad. Rav Nosson Amar, Rav Nosson says absolutely not. Shomin dvarav shel zeh hayoy, u'kshiyavu chaver lamacher shomin dvarav. You're allowed to hear each and every testimony individually. That's the machlekes Tanaim. But my politically, what are they arguing about? Ibo is ema svara, ibo is ema kra. So again, I could explain their machlekes based on psukim or based on logic. Mar savar eid echad ki asi l'shvua asi l'mamayna loy asi. V'idach atu ki asu b'hadadei b'chad puma kamasadi elam mitzdarfen lo hachanami mitzdarfen lo. So what's the svara that the Gemara presents? The Gemara presents, how could you say that you could accept one before the other? I'm going to testify today, and you're going to testify tomorrow. What could you say? The guy, when he walked in as one aid, he walked in for what reason? L'shvua, right? So now, how can you now use that and join that to say, l'mamayna loyasi, he didn't come to be mechayiv mamon. So the Gemara says, right? Rashi says, l'shvua asi, aid echad einu mechayiv mamon, el l'shvua, hilka k'she'aid zeh yechidi, when he came on Monday by himself, v'zeh yechidi loy shaycha teres mamon be'edusan. He's not mechayiv money. And you can't join him to be mechayiv something new that he wasn't being mechayiv. V'idach, so how does Rav Nosson respond back to that? So Rav Nosson says back to that, no. Ki asi ba'adeh. Okay, so what's better? And when he comes with another guy, so what? They're going to say it exactly at the same time? Ki asi ba'adeh b'chad puma kamasadeh. Are they actually testifying with one mouth? Rather, we join them together, even if they're going to do it consecutively. So if it's minutes or if it's seconds and it's days, what's the difference? We're going to be mitzaref them, so therefore in svara they disagree. Okay? So comes along the night of Yehuda. Good. Okay, so I think what we're about to see might clarify and good with your help with your question. The Noda B'Yehuda here brings up our Gemara in the following context. I believe years ago we discussed this Noda B'Yehuda. This is a fascinating Noda B'Yehuda. Mardur Kama Even Ezer Siman Ayin Beis Mais Sekir Be'Eshesish. This was a woman that was mezaneh, and there were rumors about her, and the father-in-law got involved, and he was a powerful father-in-law, and he was scaring people to testify and destroy them. It was mamish like people. You think politics only started now? There was you read the Shaila Noda B'Yehuda, you could feel the political pressure in that story, and there were Eidim, and so basically. What came out, the first page of the tshuva is just the story. It's a fascinating story. Basically, every person that was mezana or that knew who was mezana, and this woman was mezana a bunch of times, gave their own practical edus, but and there were poskim and rabbanim. I don't know whether they were forced or they got pressured into writing tshuvas of why this woman and man could stay married. And the Noda B'Yehuda wrote a forceful tshuva. It's a lengthy tshuva, and every chelik of the tshuva is stira heter. Arishon stira heter, Asheni stira heter. He goes through every single heter that the rabbis wanted to compile to say that it's mutter, and he says absolutely not. In the first paragraph, he says this woman is an eshes ish, a zinsa, and they have to get divorced, and I don't care what anyone says, and it's all wrong. And it's just a fascinating tshuva. You could see like the the sparks of what's going on in the town, and how the Nidbi Yehuda just wasn't concerned. So the first heter that one of the Rabbanim wrote that the Nidbi Yehuda begins the tshuva to disagree with is that, in terms of the timing, the aid that presented. First of all, the second stira really deals with what we spoke about last week, which is the Beis Halevi, who had a different shaila, similar. There was Eidis Miuchedes, meaning the Eidim were never together. You had an Eid Echad here, Eid Echad here. So is Eidis Miuchedes kosher when it comes to Eidish Zinsa, which is something we actually spoke at length from the Chuvas Beis Halevi last week, which is dealing with the discussion of Eidis Miuchedes, that based on the rationale of the Beis Halevi that we just mentioned, he thought for Znus it would be something that would be believed, because the facts on the ground are good, it just doesn't help for capital punishment. Fine. So Nidbi Yehuda discusses that in the second part, but I don't want to focus on that. Starts off with, there were different Eidim that seemed to be contradictory in terms of the timing, in terms of some of the Chakiras, in terms of when this happened, and that was the question. So maybe we should throw out the Eidus because it's not Eidus Shata Yochel Azima, and there's no and they're contradicting each other in terms of some of the facts of the case. I don't remember exactly what they were contradictory. So that was the discussion. So the Nidbi Yehuda in this tshuva right here in front of you in Siman Ayin Beis goes on a lengthy tshuva. He's machadish something. Again, his purpose is because of this case, but he's being machadish something fascinating that affects really all financial matters and cases. And he argues with a shach and with many poskim. He says, you don't need Eidei Shata Yochel Azima in Dinei Mamonos. And therefore he's going to extend from there to Znus and other non-Dinei Nefashos cases. And he proves that the fact that you need in general Eidei Shata Yochel Azima, that you need to be able to be zomim them by figuring out the timing of what their Eidus is, that's not necessary in the world of Dinei Mamonos. And he proves it from our Gemara. Listen to this. But that's his purpose. That's what he's trying to do over here, and trying to argue with some big guns on this matter, that even Midoraisa, there was never a din of Eidei Shata Yochel Azima in financial matters, and that's what he's trying to argue over here. Va'ani Yomer, the second column. Adarab, afilu adin Torah shetzarach b'dinei mamonos Drisha v'chakira. Even if you argue midoraisa originally, happens to be, we're going to learn later, the fourth parak, the Gemara says kadesh lo tinol delas b'fnei lovin, so that we make sure that people have the ability to borrow. They even midorabanan got rid of Drisha v'chakira when it comes to dinei mamonos, because we wanted to make sure that it would be easy to have edim in the matter. But minat Torah, the Gemara says, there clearly was Drisha v'chakira. That's the Mishnah in the fourth parak of Sanhedrin. Va'afal pichein, says the Nidbi Yehuda, the third line from the top. Eidei Shata Yochel Azima loy ba'ina. You don't need Eidei Shata Yochel Azima. Again, why is this going to help the Nidbi Yehuda? Because if that's true, so then the fact that you can't be zoymim these Eidim that are not consistent on the facts doesn't matter in the world of Znus. That's what he's trying to build. He's going to expound from Dinei Mamonos, and he's going to extend to other areas in terms of this shidduch. Ve'ein zeh tali b'zeh kasher evar. V'kvar shekvar herchavti b'toisis the reish meseches makos. V'hinei. But he proves from our Gemara. Listen to what he says. V'hinei b'Sanhedrin daf lamed amar aleph pligi Rabbi Shua ben Karcha b'Rabbanan be'edis miuchedes. There's a machlekes tanoim whether edis miuchedes is kosher. Acher kach pligi Rav Nosson v'Rabbanan in shoymin dvarav shel zeh hayoim. And then there's another machlekes in the testimony if you could have it testifying 2 different days. Umasik b'maika mifli, and the Gemara concludes what's their machlekes? Iba yisei masvara, iba yisei makra. Iba yisei masvara mar savar eid echad ki yasi l'shvuasi l'mamayna lo yasi v'idach atu ki yasi ba'adei adadei b'chad puma masidei ele mitztarfin v'iba yisei makra. So that he quotes our Gemara. Good. Dinei kaimalon karevin nasan. We paskin like Reb Nasan that what they can come on 2 different days and testify separately. The shaymin devar shel zeh yom chaver afilu achar zman. Ayin berambam good. Ubatur good. Ubabakama fine. So the Gemara he's just bringing proofs that we pass. V'hine ve'edim shabo zeh yom v'chaver la'achar zman. V'aday zeh shaba rishayna enu mischayev ba'azama. He could never get hazama. Ask the Noid on our Gemara. Why? Demotzi lemeimar, because he could get out of the hazama. What's the hazama over here, Abosai? What's the kasher zamam? He says what? He says Jerome owes Abe $200, right? So now, Eidim Zaymim came and say, what? Where were you on that day? Imanu ayisim. How do you know? You can't. You're a liar. So therefore, what? He has to do kasher zamam lasos le'achiv. Really? How could that be? Why can't, says the Nabi Yehuda, Matzil Meimar, Ana miyadina sheyavo eid echad. I never knew there was going to be a second aid coming. Acher kam yaman letzrufe. Ani, I knew I was walking in individually. Ani l'chayv shvua basi. I only intended to be mechayv shvua. Zok the Nabi Yehuda, by definition, any time that I came in on my own, I could never have Eidei Shata Yachal Azima. Wow. Rav Nachman after soiver the mitzdarif mikom kavadei moide deina maschai ba'azama. Zok the Nabi Yehuda and Afal Bichin Rav Nasan in our Gemara says it's kosher. They can come one today and one tomorrow, one this week and one next week, and you can be mitzdarif them. It's not Eidei Shata Yachal Azima. Zok the Nabi Yehuda, you see a chiddush nifla between the lines of our Gemara, something that we didn't even see coming, something so fundamental, something that's going to save Eishes Ishes. It's going to destroy Eishes Ishes, actually. Something, Eidei Shata Yachal Azima is not relevant l'gabe Dinei Mamonos. That's what Nabi Yehuda proves from our Gemara. Where is he coming from?
So it's an Eidei Echad. So you can't make it huge scores of the
Wait, what? He's saying not so. He's saying there's just no kasher zama. He's saying because I only came to him in chayiv shvua.
Well, it doesn't matter. His words will ultimately get used for something else. So
But that wasn't what I'm zoning him to do.
he's coming into Beis Din for a reason. His
So Nabi Yehuda, so Nabi Yehuda supports himself. Ayin Sanhedrin Daf Mem Aleph Amid Aleph Memra de Reb Chanan be'Eidei Nar Marasa. Let's see. This is something we all saw together, but many years ago. The Gemara says that Eidei, the second wide line. Eidei Nara Marasa, Eidim that saw a Nar Marasa that was Shehuzmu, and they lied about it, that she was Mizana, Eina Nerogin. Why? Mitoich she'yecholun loymar la'oisral bailabanu. Because they could answer, what? We only intended to come in here, what? To Asar on her husband. We never meant, we're not such evil people. We didn't want to kill her. So therefore, says the Gemara, they can't get killed. Ask the Gemara, what? Va isruba. You gave her hasra. Of course you meant to kill her. So the Gemara says, Delo isruba. So the Gemara asks, V'idelo isruba, heichi mikdala. So why is this a chiddush? Of course they're not going to be able to be killed because you never gave hasra. So the Gemara says, V'isha chaveira. And this is why we saw this Gemara. One of the reasons we saw this Gemara, I think a few times, because this was the Gemara that a chaver doesn't need asra. Someone who knows the difference between shegig umezid, it's machlekes tanoim, and one of the shita tanoim thought it doesn't need the hasra to remind him the difference between shegig and umezid. Good. But what's the Gemara's assumption? The Gemara's assumption is that if the Eidim have a way out, meaning you get through the technicalities, that what? They didn't give asra, fine. But fundamentally, up on the books over here, before the Eidim would now give their defense that they had another intention over here, we would say, let's take their lesser intention. And we can't give Hazama. Comes along Nabi Yehuda and he says, every Eid Echad is exactly like that. There are two possible outcomes of this Eidus. So says the Nadi Yehuda, I had no idea that a second aid would come. I had no idea that there would be a chi of mammon. So therefore says the Nadi Yehuda, so then he should be mechayev shvua. You should never have kasher zama. Comes along the Nadi Yehuda and says, you're absolutely right. There is no kasher zama. And you don't need Eidei Shata Yochel Azima by Dinei Mamonos. From where? Sanhedrin, Daf Lamed and Aleph. Our Gemara. By the fact that we paskin that you could accept one aid after another aid, therefore it obviously proves something so fundamental to the entire Masechah Sanhedrin that the concept of Eidei Shata Yochel Azima is not necessary by Dinei Mamonos. Wow, fascinating, and that's what he's going to use now apply to his case of Znus, where it's not Eidei Shata Yochel Azima. So comes along the Beis Halevi in a different tshuva, and Chelek Gimel Siman Hey, not connected to the tshuva that we spoke about last week, and he says that this is absolutely wrong. But let's see what he says. First of all, the beginning of this tshuva, I didn't send it to Adi, but the beginning of the tshuva is just proof after proof from just Rishonim and Shas that clearly Min HaTorah, just like we have the concept of Eidei Shata Yochel Azima when it comes to Dinei Mamonos, clearly Min HaTorah there's something, Dinei Nefashos, clearly Min HaTorah fundamentally it existed on a level of Dinei Mamonos as well, and just like the Mishnah starts off in the fourth parak, Echad Dinei Nefashos, Echad Dinei Mamonos, Tzrichin Drisha v'Chakira, they're all, the Mishnah parallels the two. The Mishnah says that the two are linked. And yes, Midrabanan we change things, but on the level of the Araisa, fundamentally everything exists. And therefore, if you have a contradiction like the Shach says, and the Eidim are actually arguing with or contradicting each other with the Chakiras, whether or not you necessitate it lechatchila, that might be midrabanan. They made takanos kadesh lo tinol delis b'fnei lovin to allow that halvos and Dinei Mamonos should carry through in a smooth fashion. But once there is a contradiction, he says that's for sure a problem, because now you're messing midaraisa with now having invalid chakiras. But how do you deal with, fundamentally, okay, you can knock him out. You could have rayas from today until tomorrow. What concerns me, Rabosai, is his raya from our Gemara. How do you deal with his raya if you take the Gemara in Sanhedrin Mem Aleph? The Gemara in Sanhedrin Mem Aleph say whenever the Eidim have a solution, have a suggestion of what their intention was really for, so then you can't apply Hazama. So doesn't that imply that by Dinei Mamonos, by the fact that Rabbi Nassan says you can accept one aid today and another aid tomorrow, doesn't that assume that there is no Eidei Shata Yochel Azima by Dinei Mamonos, like the Nadi Yehuda wanted to mechadish in this fascinating tshuva of the Nadi Yehuda? So comes along the Beis Halevi and he says absolutely not. And this is very, very fundamental in terms of understanding our sugya and understanding Dinei Mamonos in general. Look in Sif Katan Yud, in the end of the first column. Val karchach nira yoser leimer. Dal ikar ha'anocha v'ha'klal shehiniach ha'naydi b'Yehuda. D'b'mi'idin zeh shaloi b'fnei zeh, gam yizimum yeh potter, d'yomer rak l'chayev shvua ba. So he's addressing our very question. That which the Nadi Yehuda built his yesod to say that you don't need Eidei Shata Yochel Azima, because the first guy could say, my kavana, my intention, was only to obligate in a shvua, similar to the Eidim on Mem Aleph that say we only wanted to aser on our husband, we never wanted things to get very severe. Yesh lahashiv v'loimer. The gam eid harishon chayev l'shalim chelko, da hapshita da eid lo ba l'chayvo shvua. Da harehu oimer shechayev l'shalim, v'loi shechayev l'shvua. Listen to the text of his Eidus. Listen to what the words that he's saying. He doesn't walk in and say, Adi's chayev shvua. He says, Adi's chayev money. So, and then Bezdin respond and say, you're 1/8, so then we're going to be machayev shvua. But his lashon is that he borrowed $100. He owes him to whatever he owes him. Ulefi divrei ha'eid muchrach l'shalim v'aser loy lishave b'sheker rak de b'shvua hu nemel na'akish lahed. He has a solution that he has. The Bezdin says, since there's only 1/8 over here, there's an opt-out to what? To take a shvua. Aval ha'eid omer shechayev l'shali. V'gam do ha'koidem shenishba la'achish ha'eid. And before he takes the shvua, before he uses the opt-out, before he uses the solution that the Torah gives another option, the chazaki is that what? He's chayev to pay. Eid echad, sounds like what the Beis Halevi is saying, is that we have a different approach to what? To understanding Dinei Mamonos, Eid Echad. Eid Echad is really Machayev what? Dinei Mamonos. So why do we always say Eid Echad is Kam L'Shvua? What that means is, and there are Rishonim that say this, what that means is there's an option, since he's only an Eid Echad, that you can be makhish the Eid, you can contradict the Eid with a Shvua, and we'll let you go scot-free if you take that Shvua. But if you don't take that Shvua, so what's the Chazaka, what's the existing reality? That you're chayav to pay. And we're going to prove it. And this is proven, says the Beis Halevi, from the fact that Tosfos says there's a concept in halacha, in Mesechus Shvuos, in Mesechus Bava Basra, Mesechus Bava Metzia, that what happens if you have a case of an Eid Echad that comes to be Machayev Shvua, and the guy is not Neman, he has a history of lying. So the Gemara says, forget it, we're not going to give you Shvuos anymore. You don't have the privilege of swearing in Bezdin. You abused it, now we don't trust you anymore. So what's the din? So now what, he doesn't have to pay? So the Gemara says, absolutely not. The Gemara says, Mitoch she'eni yachol l'shava, mishalim. So one approach to some Rishonim is, midrabanan. Really, there's no chiyuv of Mamonos over here, but what are we supposed to do in such a situation? So we have to make a takana midrabanan. Really, he's not chayiv to pay, but because we're not going to now make shvuas into a joke, and shvua for him we know is a joke, so what do? Midrabanan, we say he has to pay. So that's one option to understanding the klal of mitoch she'eni yachol of shav mishalim. Says Tosfos Bava Basra, quotes the Beis Halevi, that's not pshat. It's a totally different pshat. It's the exact opposite. Shvua is a chiddush. The reality before Shvua is that what? An Eid Echad comes in his Mechayev moment. So now the Torah is Mechadesh that you have an opt-out with a Shvua, if you have the privilege to actually use that opt-out. But if you're an individual that doesn't have that opt-out, so what's the last known reality? What's the assumed halacha? He's chayav moment. So that's the halacha. Mitoch she'eni yachol l'shav mishalim. Not because we're slapping on midrabanan that you're mechayev to pay. Not because we're making a technicality. We say we don't have the option of shvu over here, so midrabanan we're going to make him pay because it's not right that this guy's not believed. He's a chashad l'shaker. Because he doesn't have the privilege to use the opt-out. If he doesn't have the privilege to use the opt-out, so then he goes with the status quo. He goes with the rule before the opt-out, which is chayav b'shalom and atayra. So an Eid Echad taka is mechayev mamon. So he's proving this halacha from an Eid Echad mechayev mamon. V'hod Eid Echad ameid yechidi. Kishi yezemu eno chayev l'shalom zel mishum dehol lo nigmar adin al piv l'chayev atnit b'l'shalom diviyod l'akhish lo'eid. He has the option to be makashim. V'chol zman shelo nigmar adin like a kasher zamam. Aval im bo achar kach oid Eid Echad v'nitzaref la'arishon v'nigmar adin al yidei shneim gam arishon chayev l'shalom chelko im yuzmu. Since they both came from Mammon, even though they came separately, if there is a good hazama on each of them, so then they're going to have to pay. Of course there's Eidei Shata Yochel Azima and Dinei Mamonos. So what's going on over here? This is unbelievable. There's a machlokes, the Beis Halevi and the Noda B'Yehuda, on a fundamental principle, whether or not Eidei Shata Yochel Azima applies to what? Dinei Mamonos. Makas Daf Beis. Does it apply to Dinei Mamonos? Noda B'Yehuda thought Sanhedrin Daf Lamed was a raya that Dinei Mamonos is different. The Beis Halevi says, no, absolutely not. You have no proof from our Gemara. But how does the Beis Halevi prove his point? From a fundamental understanding, a different understanding of why an Eid Echad comes. Whereas the Noda B'Yehuda, it seems to understand, is saying that fundamentally every Eid Echad is coming to be Mechayev Shvua. The Beis Halevi is proving that no, it's the opposite. He's coming to be Mechayev Mammon, and therefore he can join with another aid that has the din of Hazama once he comes in and there is testimony, and therefore there was the Kasher Zamam. You never come to be Mechayev Shvua. No one has the intention to be Mechayev Shvua, and therefore there's no question from Sanhedrin on Mem Aleph. So it comes out that a fundamental machlok is about the nature of Eid Echad between the Beis Halevi and the Noda B'Yehuda. He's going to now tell us whether or not we have a source from our Gemara, whether or not the general principle of Eidei Shata Yochel Azima applies to Dinei Mamonos. Yeah, Itai.
The Eid Zom should be able to get out of it though by saying, well, I want to give a shvua then. I mean, I was going to mechai this person money, but he had an opt-out with shvua, so why can't I?
Stop. What did you just say? The Eid Echad was going to be Mechayev what?
Money.
That's it. End of story. Kasher Zamam ends right there.
Why?
That's what you were Mechayev. Kasher Zamam lasois liyachiv. So by definition, the Beis Halevi says, what was your zmama? Nothing to do with shvua. Your zmama was what? Mammon. Only mammon. What happens in Bezdin is irrelevant to you. Your intention was what? To be mechayev money. That's it. You got to pay. Yeah.
We say Eid Echad Nemen B'Yisurim. That member contradicts now you're saying, according to this, Eid Echad is never Mamonos. Right? It's your Mamonos. If you have an opt-out of shvuah, but otherwise you have the Mamonos that you're Mechayiv.
So Eidei and Bisurin is famous because you really don't need anything else. There's nothing even necessary. No one's going to, even the Beis Halevi is going to agree that there was a Chiddush HaTorah that he could become L'Shvuah, and as long as Shvuah is an option, that it's not going to be consequential, the Eid Echad, because he has an opt-out. No one's ignoring that an Eid Echad is Kam L'Shvuah. The shaila is, what's the fundamental approach to that? So says the Beis Halevi, fundamentally it's not so different than Isurin. Fundamentally he is being Mechayev Mammon, but you can't ignore that he has that opt-out. But it's going to be relevant when that opt-out is not an option.
So what is the shvuah doing? It makes it that you are no longer high, meaning it's knocking off the edus, or it's just saying, oh, Basin's going to tie their hands and say, okay, we're not going to collect.
Well, it's not knocking off the edus, meaning if there's an Eid Echad that's Mechayev you, and you take a shvuah, and then tomorrow, according to Rav Nosson, another Eid comes, your shvuah. No, I don't think so. I think everyone would agree that your edus is nothing. Now it becomes two edim. It's just as long as the excuse works, as long as the ptur works, because you only have one eid, so then it's relevant.
No, if you're saying that the aid is essentially being the chai of shvuah, and if
no, he's not.
No, I'm saying according to the
no Yehuda,
right?
Yeah.
So it's being chai of shvuah.
Right.
So if on the first day aid comes in.
But even according to the Yehuda,
you're done with that aid.
no, but it's not true because Rav Nosson holds that you can be mitzdaref. Rav Nosson's not saying only in a situation where the guy didn't take a shvuah. Rav Nosson's saying if they came 2 separate days, so now that becomes shnayim for Dinei Mamonos. He's not saying except where he took a shvuah and he was masalik himself. Bezdin will call you back in and say, I understand, you took a shvuah. We are at that point in time, we thought that there was only one aid, but it came out next week there was another guy who was out of town. He now came and he testified. I'm sorry, now your shvuah is meaningless. That's l'chora, that's going to be the halacha, because now it's a shvuah b'makom shnei edim, which is meaningless. Which could
if he it's a false shvuah, clearly, right? I mean,
It wasn't at the time.
but now it is. I mean, it was the time. She didn't know it at the time.
I mean, it's going to be a lab shame on Maisa, but did he violate an Isser, you want to know? Did he violate an Isser?
Does he lose Namanas and everything else?
That's maybe the.
Because 2 Eidim now are going against him.
No, because he definitely did a shua shah.
He did it right. But at the time, Bezdin was Mechayev him.
Yeah,
But
he
still,
said
right.
it was
Later we find out that he's lying.
Right. L'chayra, it's Shvuah. It's no different than Eidim that are saying that he lied. Yeah, I think so. He's probably chashid now. Yeah.
What's the name of the second aid doesn't come? Just one aid comes.
And he took a Shvuah? It's butter.
Then other aid come and they're masin this first aid.
They have to pay. They have to pay.
No. That's exactly what the Dinei Yehuda proves. That on Shvuah there's no hazama. So as long as he could say that's all I came to do, so you can never be mazim me. This still, he would agree also. He doesn't disagree with the approach of him. He just says that he just says that there could be a potential hazama if you would have a second eight. And he can never use the opt-out in saying, I only came to be Mechayev Shvuah, because that's not the way an Eid Echad works. That's not your testimony. Your testimony is you're Chayev money. And you're Chayev money to the extent that if another aid comes in, I'm part of the 2 aid. What do you mean? According to the Beis Halevi, no, because there is no concept of an Eid Echad coming to be Mechayev Shvuah and having kavanah only for a shvuah. That's not relevant to the aid. So Mamela, you never have such a story to tell to respond to the Bezdin in order to not receive hazam. If you came in and you gave edus about Dinei Mamonos, that means you're a Mechayev Mamon. The fact that you're inconsequential, the fact that someone had an opt-out to take a shvuah, says the Beis Halevi, it's true, but it's irrelevant to you. That's not the story that you told. You told us that he's Chayev money. So Mamela, the Sanhedrin Mem Aleph is never going to be another story that he could rely on. The fact that Bezdin...
He doesn't rely on the fact that he said, I only came to...
No, he can't.
Bala.
There he can. There he can because that's another din that could be that these Eidim only had kavanah for that. But the Beis Halevi says, but that's not applicable where a guy walks in and he says, you're chayav money. You're saying you're chayav money and you're being mechayev, you're chayav money. The fact that Bezdin responds and says, take a shvua, that's irrelevant to you. You came in to be mechayev money. You didn't come in to be mechayev shvuas. That's not the way Dinei Mamonos works. So Memela, it's not comparable to the Gemara in Sanhedrin Mem Aleph. That's what the Beis Halevi is machadish. It could be, being that this is a fascinating fundamental machlokes between the Beis Halevi and the Eidei Yehuda, one could actually suggest that is exactly the machlokes Tanoim in our Gemara. If you want to be a little fancy, what's the Gemara saying? B'may k'mifligi, ibo yisei masvara, ibo yisei makra. Let's see the svara. Ibo yisei masvara, mar sover eid echad ki asi l'shvua asi l'mamayna loy asi. What does that mean? What's he's saying? He's saying when an eid echad comes, he's coming to be mechayev shvua. So Mamela, that's a totally independent thing. And it's just like the Eidei says, it was a din called shvu, and that's what the Eidei was coming from. No, each aid has a potential for money, and we can be mitzdarif them for money, and that's what he's coming for. Hachanami litzarfinu. There is a kasha, so that's the machlokes, the Beis Halevi and the Eidei Yehuda that comes out of the Gemara. There's a fascinating kasha in the back of our Gemaras that comments on this Gemara. So what happens if you have an Eid Echad and another Eid Echad that are made on two separate days? So we just said it's Machlokes Tanoim. Machlokes Reb Nosson and Chacham. So what happens, ask the Paris Yosef, if you have something that can't be Mechayev Shvuah? Kan efshar loimer that afkamina bein svara lekra di imisvara be'edus karka. Oh, be'avodim she'ein nishboin aleihem. Let's say you have a subject matter that ein nishboin ala karkos, ein nishboin ala avodim. You can't say asa eid echad for what? For a shvua. So then, could one suggest that even according to Tanakama, one would say that the eid echad that you should be mitzaref the two separate Eidim that are testifying on two separate days, because there is no opt-out within the Svara, there is no opt-out of l'shvua asi, because there was no shvua potential. So by the virtue of the fact that you're talking about something that never lends itself to a shvua, so in the Svara explanation of the Machlokes Tanakam and Reb Nosson, you never had such potential. But then he says, but that's an afkamina if you learn the Machlokes Tanoim based on a svara. But if you learn based on a pasuk, so then you're not going to have this nafkamina. And that's the way the Gemara closes, and we'll finish with this. The Gemara says, in Machlokes Tanoim, im lo yagid v'nosa avono. That the pasuk says, im lo yagid v'nosa avono. Udechuli alma karabanan depliga alei Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. And now go back to the original Gemara. The Gemara had a machlokes, not only by Eidus Miuchedes about the way we're testifying, which we talked about today, but the Gemara says there was a machlokes Tanoim last week that we talked about the Re'iyas HaMaisim. Can they see separate Maisim? Can that count as Eidus also when it comes to Dinei Mamonos? Rabbanan hold, no, they have to see the same case. It has to be Re'iyah Ke'echad. So the machlokes over here between Rab Nosson and Rabbanan is assuming like the Rabbanan against Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, and what? The question is, do we say Haggadah is linked, the testimony is linked to the Re'iyah? By the Re'iyah, we're assuming like Rabbanan that it has to be Re'iyah Ke'echad. Mar savar makshinan Haggadah l'Re'iyah, umar savar loy makshinan Haggadah l'Re'iyah. Haggadah could be different than Re'iyah, doesn't have to be Ke'echad, so that would be an afkamina if you learn it from a pasuk, so then you wouldn't have the question of the difference between whether or not they were talking about a subject matter that doesn't lend itself to a shvua. That's what the Paras Yosef says that he thinks would be an afkamina between the svara and the kra. But fundamentally, we have a major machlokes between the Yehud and the Beis Halevi that comes up just from understanding the case of this Gemara and how Azama would come out, which would have tremendous nafkaminas, which ultimately lends itself to now be an nafkamina, how to understand the nature of Eidei.